Hey YouTube, Maestro here with Bendu Lightsaber Combat. Welcome to the second Knights level Makashi video. This one we'll be talking about the two different types of fighting that you will see in lightsaber combat. There are two types of fighting in lightsaber combat, and most people gravitate towards one or the other the same way that some people are right or left-handed. You have to know how to be able to engage both, especially if you want to call yourself a Makashi master. Dueling a lot of different people, you'll be exposed to different types of fighting, but they will all really come down to two preferential modes. The first is called false fighting. False fighting doesn't mean that it's untrue or anything like that. It's just a term that's used to denote this type of combat. False fighting is typified, as you can see here by my lovely assistants, by an empty space between the opponents, wherein they try not to step or engage in blade-to-blade contact. This is a type of fighting where you will see a lot of movement and footwork while trying to actually avoid the other person's blade entirely and trying to score a strike through superior positioning and movement and getting out cleanly so that you don't have to mess with blocking, blade-to-blade contact, taking of the blade, those types of deals. Some types of real-world combat where you'll see examples of this mainly are things like in the South Pacific martial arts, Kali, Eskrima styles. In these types of weapons combat, there is a great deal of the opponents circling each other, making slashes, making strikes, but not attempting to actually strike the weapon or to take hold of the weapon or to engage the weapon. What they want to do is they want to have the goal of striking and then getting out to avoid bodily harm. Historically, it's a very safe way to fight. You're less likely, when you engage blades especially, to damage your weapon, to have your weapon taken. It's just it's a more simplified, pure version of combat. So you'll see that false fighting in different things. To a degree, you will see it in some forms of Kenjutsu, particularly Iado is at the lower levels especially. A false fighting based form. You see a lot of drawing, cutting, but you don't want to engage the blades. You don't want to make blocks and parries. Those things can damage your weapon or get you killed. What you want to do is draw, strike, and recover or move out into a safe area, covering yourself as you leave, not going into the action. True fighting is a second form of or type of fighting. With true fighting, blade-to-blade contact is actively sought as a means of controlling the opponent, measuring the action, making sure that you know where the opponent's blade is, gaining a small measure of control. This is especially prevalent in sword and buckler combat, where the bind is seen as not only inevitable but desirable. You want to go in, you want to cast your blow, initiate that bind, feel the opponent's pressure signals, and respond after that bind from a position where you have their blade controlled, where the threat to your life is less. You'll see both types in lightsaber combat, being adapted as it is from many different sources in the real world, especially here in Bendu Lightsaber Combat. Great other systems like TPLA, Saber Authority, things like that. You'll see a lot of those utilizing both. Nobody is one or the other all the time that I have seen. I myself am not one or the other all the time. Sometimes I like to utilize false fighting if the situation calls for it. Other times I will engage in active true fighting. There is no right or wrong way to do this. One is not inherently superior to the other. It's a matter of appropriate versus inappropriate. In one fight with one opponent, false fighting might be appropriate for that situation. In another with a different opponent, or or anything else changes, true might be more appropriate. True fighting might be more appropriate choice. So we'll show some examples of these two in actual combat, and you can see what I'm talking about when we look at different techniques from different forms, different schools, things like that. You'll see both the false and the true. But it's important to differentiate them. Why? Because they have particular goals, and the preference, especially if you can see it in your opponent, whether they prefer the false or prefer the true, can tell you a lot about who they are as a fighter, helping you to size them up and gain a victory early, which, of course, victory is a hallmark of a true Makashi master. All right, thank you very much.